Each year between the months of March and May and October and December, the fisherwomen of the Thane district of Maharashtra practice a unique form of fishery that targets shrimp, locally called kolam. These women fish in the near-shore waters using a simple net called kolam sadi. These nets are made of fine mosquito netting attached on both sides to bamboo poles. They put into water at a slant, and when the kolam gather in the nets, the poles are brought together to close in the net. Though this is a simple technique of fishing, it can take up to 2 hours before the net is cast again. Kolam fishing may be unique, but the experience of these in Maharashtra are common to almost all women in the fishing communities along India's nearly 8,000-kilometer coastline. In fishery and fishing-related activities, it is not only in Maharashtra, but common to almost all women in the fishing communities along India's nearly 8,000-kilometer coastline. In fishery and fishing-related activities, it is not a question of whether women work, rather it's a question of what work women do. Fishing on the open seas is done by men. Women work on other important chores. Sometimes they fish in inshore waters. They gather crab and clams. Invariably, they are the ones to receive the catch on the shore and market it. They sometimes dry and salt the catch for future sale. They weave and repair the nets. And of course, they are the ones who run the household and take care of the children and the elderly. Women fish workers number in the thousands. They make a huge, significant contribution to the economy of the country. Yet, this is hardly ever recognized or reflected in official pronouncements. Government data about work of women in these communities is at best inadequate and incomplete. Take the case of Kakadweep in West Bengal state. Here can be found an uncommon sight. Women joining, stretching and mending large gill nets. In the rest of India, most fishermen use machine-made nets. In Kathmandu, they are less expensive. Yet, this is a relatively new activity for the women, not something traditional and age-old. Many of the women are refugees who are forced to acquire these skills in order to survive. The struggle to survive is what unites the experience of women in fisheries. The fish market. Nowhere else is the woman fish worker more visible, yet even here her work remains unrecognized. The lot of women fish vendors is not an easy one. Her day starts when the fishing craft returns to the shore. In the bare area of Meendakara, nearly 2,000 fisher families live in just 1 square meter. Earlier, when the fishermen used traditional craft and gear, landings were small and took place all along the hundreds of small fishing villages dotting the Indian coastline. It was often the wives of the fishermen waiting on shore who took over the catch once it was landed, selling it fresh or processed. The entire community was involved in the fishery. Today things have changed with the construction of harbors, motorization of traditional craft, and the use of modern gear like trawl nets. Many fishermen now prefer to land at harbors to get a better price. For the women, this means traveling a longer distance to get fish. Often the best catches are taken by merchants with ready capital. Women who have meager capital resources manage to buy only low-value or trash fish. Even to do so, they need to borrow money. This often leads to a vicious cycle of debt. The fish into the market is not easy. The fisherwomen are denied public transport due to the complaints of the smell of fish. Groups of women sometimes get together to hire an open truck to transport them and their loads to the nearest railway station or fish market. It may make for a pretty sight, but these women are often harassed by the truck drivers. In some areas, the Fishermen's Welfare Corporation has organized special buses that transport the women to and from the harbor. For every fish worker who has access to such convenience, there are thousands of others who walk miles to reach this important source of food to the consumer. In many parts of the country, dry fish is sold instead of fresh fish due to the lack of reliable transport and other infrastructure. Over time, the women of fishing communities have developed diverse and creative ways of processing fish and preserving them for long-term storage. Communities are trying to cope with the changes that threaten their livelihoods. They are organizing into groups and associations to highlight the diverse problems they face, both as fish workers and as members of fishing communities. In West Bengal, women fish workers have waged a struggle to be included in the relief-cum-saving plan of the government. Now that the women fish workers are more aware of the value of their work, a certain consciousness has set in. They've begun organizing themselves through organizations like the National Fish Workers Forum to demand action on various fronts. Lack of transport, constant harassment by touts and middlemen at the markets, the poor amenities and infrastructure in the markets, the poor credit facilities. The women also demand basic living amenities for their communities, like drinking water, sanitation, healthcare, and education. Thanks to this movement, Selvaraji is now part of an organized community that ensures that the voices of the women are heard. For a sustainable fishery, a fishery that sustains not only the resource, but also the livelihood of those that have depended on it for generations.